Hello to all fans of video games. Today we will talk about one of the games of the company Chilla called the Caregiver. In their collections of works, the independent duo of developers Chilla explored a wide range of different types of horrors, creating anxiety, discomfort, and fear with the help of elements such as a disrupted daily routine, small changes in the usual, and riddles with many layers. The Caregiver would be to spoil some of the more interesting things it does, so today we will attempt to explore it without giving away too many of those intriguing twists and turns, save for the fact it does some interesting things with traditional Japanese beliefs. In The Caregiver, you first take control of an employee of a nursing home named Sachi, who is responsible for an old man named Suichi. Instead of living in a nursing home, Suichi still lives in his house, which is conveniently located next to the nursing home, so Sachi takes care of him by calling him and asking if there is some need for help. When the story begins, Sachi is called to Suichi's house to deal with some kind of emergency, although she is not sure exactly what is it. Upon arrival, she discovers that Suichi's house has been left in a terrible state, garbage everywhere and a strange smell filling in the air. Worse, she can't find any sign of Suichi, at least at first, and when she finally tracks him down, he doesn't seem able or willing to communicate with her. When our time with Sachi is coming to an end, we are shown a third-person video, unusual for a Chilla game, in which she is shown being scared by something she sees upstairs in Suichi's house, although it is unclear what exactly. From this point on, in the game, we take control of Sachi's colleague named Naomi, as she takes care of Suichi, and on her own initiative tries to find out what exactly scared Sachi so much. As is par for the course for Chilla's more recent releases, The Caregiver adopts a distinctly PS2 style horror game aesthetic. This time around, the Vhs Effect that the team typically uses is toned down a little bit, and is more akin to actually playing a standard definition PS2 game on an old CRT through an RF cable rather than the fuzzy, noise-filled video of some other Chilla titles. The Caregiver unfolds in the same way as many other horror games, in the style of walking simulator from Chilla, in the sense that this game is primarily about exploring the environment from the first-person perspective and observing the development of the story. However, this time several interesting additions have been made to the formula. In particular, the number of puzzles and situations that need to be solved with the help of inventory items has noticeably increased. Plus, by the end of the game, there are a couple of chase sequences where you need to complete some of the tasks being pursued. Fortunately, in the latter case, the game includes an autosave system, so if you screw up, you can try the sequence again instead of starting the whole game over. None of the chase sequences are particularly challenging, although the fact that you have to solve puzzles while fending off unwanted attention from your pursuer makes things a little more difficult. One of the nice things about the Caregiver is that it rarely gives you clear instructions on what to do next. Some players will undoubtedly object to this, as it means that sometimes it may not be clear at first what your next course of action should be. But on the other hand, it is nice to feel that the game trusts you to figure things out on your own. There is no part of the game that seems unnecessarily dumb, and usually determining what you should do is a simple matter of research until you find one of the glowing green dots indicating an interactive element. If you can't interact with the item directly, you need to use the item from the inventory. If you don't have a suitable inventory item, study a little more. This works well. While the game, as you would expect from a horror game, is pretty dark, there are no situations where things are hidden in such a way that you can't see them. Plus, the aforementioned glowing dots make finding important things pretty simple. As for the story as a whole, explaining too much would mean spoiling some surprises, as noted earlier. At the moment, suffice it to say that the Caregiver absorbs some interesting elements of traditional Japanese folklore and religion, as well as the more traditional horror of crawling in the dark house with creaking floors, which is characteristic of many other Chilla games. In many ways, this game feels like one of the most explicitly J-horror of all Chilla creations, and it works well. It definitely makes me feel that the team could have created a more meaningful horror story based on Japanese myths, legends, religious beliefs, and folklore, for example, those that can be seen in the Project Zero Fatal Frame series. In fact, I would probably go so far as to say that The Caregiver is one of the best creations of the Chilla in general. It is well structured, its narration has a good place, its gameplay is satisfying, and there is a feeling that in the end it got some kind of satisfactory return, plus opportunities for direct continuation. Japanese horror games have a certain vibe that other horror games don't. They make you immerse yourself in the process and the plot with your head. Because of this, you can even forget that there are some screamers or scary moments in the game, but this is exactly the specificity of Japanese horror games, especially of those made by Chilla's art. They slowly make you dull your senses so that the final effect is much better. It is better to scare a person who no longer expects to be scared. Some of Chilla's art games can be a bit of a hard sell to those who prefer a little more direct involvement and player agency from their games. The Caregiver strikes a good balance between the team's more narrative-centric titles and their games that are a bit more inspired by survival horror specifically. If you are new to the work of Chilla's art, this is probably a good one to start with, and as always, it is brief length and low price means that you are not risking much by giving it a shot.